So at the end of this module, you'll be able to debug Python scripts using PDB. That's a Python debugger. Debugging in Python. Debugging is identifying and removing error or bugs from script or code. Right? You all know debugging. If you have written any programming language till date, you would have faced many errors and you would have debugged it as well. Right? It's as simple as that. Okay. So there's nothing much to talk about this. You would already know. And the types of error, okay. Some of these errors are very self-explanatory. You know what a syntax error is, right? In Python, if you miss a proper indentation, that's a syntax error. If you miss colon at the end of your case statements or your control statements, that's a syntax error, right? And any other thing, if you do not write your keywords properly, that's a syntax error, right? So you know this. I'm sure you would have seen many syntax error in many different languages. So runtime error is something. It's more like your logical error. If you have an infinite recursion in your program, it will eventually give you an error. It will keep on running. It will eventually run out of memory and give you an error, or it will eventually give you an error because after a certain point in time, based on the interpreter, it will give you some error. Okay, so and the good thing about Python is most runtime error message includes information about where the error occurred and what functions were executing. So that's the good thing about Python. You'll be able to know where is the runtime error occurring, using which piece of code is the runtime error occurring. Your semantic errors. So basically, this is not an error. It's not an error. It's not a syntax error. It's not a runtime error. It's basically you wanted to do something, but you wrote code which is doing something else. It's okay. It's something like you wanted to print A, but your output is B. So see, the program did run just fine, but it did not meet your expectation. Whatever entry you made, you did not get output as expected. So those are semantic errors. So let's see some of the syntax error. I'll just type something, okay, which will give us an error. Or let me not do that. This is pretty simple. Okay. So you see here, the most common syntax messages are invalid syntax or invalid token. Okay, most IDE including idle catches syntax error immediately. I mean, this does not make sense for me to type it. It's very easy for you to understand. So if I say print x in 1 2 3 4 5, print syntax error caught by IDE. Okay, so if you see this, you will not get any error because I don't see any error here. And okay, I see an error. There is no colon here. Okay. If you miss a colon, obviously you'll get a syntax error. For x in 1 2 3 4 5, and then it says invalid syntax, right? Because there's no colon. So basically, this is what it's doing, right? See, invalid syntax. That's all. That's all it's trying to say. Okay. Moving on. Syntax error caught by IDE. I can type the same thing in an IDE. See, the IDE gives you a much better picture. Okay, look at the idle error. It says syntax error, invalid syntax. But look at what your IDE gives. It says if you do this right, for this for x in 1 2 3, it's see here tilde type. It's showing you as to where the error is. It must be here. So that's about it. I mean, you would have seen this. There's no big deal. We'll just move on. Okay. Here are some ways to avoid the most common syntax error. Never use a Python keyword for a variable name, right? Obviously, you all know that. It's the same with every programming language. You should never ever use a keyword for a variable name. Every compound statement, including for, while, if, and def statement should have a colon at the end of header. I mean, I have repeated this n number of times. You know, your control statements, your def statements, and what else? You know, yeah, all of these, right? They would need to have a colon in the end. And second is indentation. Any strings in the code should have matching quotation mark. You cannot start with one quote and end with two quotes. Always check unclosed opening operators. Okay, you see this, if you have opened your code with some of these braces, then you need to close it as well. Always check for classic equal to instead of double equal to inside a conditional statement. Basically, if I say if basically it's saying this, right? This is a classic error, okay? So if you do double equal to, it just runs. So that's what it's saying. Always check the indentation. Yeah, that's your bread and butter. If you are writing Python, indentation and colon are the two most important things that you need to remember. Don't give your module the same name as one of the standard Python modules if you are writing a module and using import. So basically, avoid using the same names as Python packages. That's all. This is the property of the package datetime. Let's say you do an import. Let me do this. Okay, and then let me copy and paste. I do not want to type it, so I'll just copy and paste. It says invalid token, and saying 9. Why? So basically it's because all of these numbers are represented in octal format. Okay, so your date and time has numbers representing in octal format. So instead of 9, I'll tell you, and how does octal format looks like. See, it's fine. Okay, your octal format is something which will have numbers starting from 1 to 7. Okay, you see here. So basically, if you have to represent a particular number in octal format, right? Let's say, for example, you want to let's say 23 in octal format. If you want to represent this in octal format, this will be 2 into 8 to the power of 0 plus 3 into 8 to the power 1. So it becomes 8 to the power of 0 is 1 plus 8 3 is 24. I'm not sure if this is power 1 and this is power 0. I just got confused whether it's this way or the other way. But regardless of that, right, it will be in this format. If you have to represent anything in octal format, you'll have to say 2 into 8 to the power 1 and 3 into 8 to the power 0. So this becomes 16 plus and 3, 19. So 23 would become your 19 in an octal format. Okay, so if something is not coming properly in an octal format, then it'll just give an error. So basically that's the property of date time. Okay, and that's nothing that you and I can do. It's that's how it has been designed and that's how it is there. So you'll have to just know as to what you want to use it there. Okay, runtime error. So let's say, for example, right, it's just giving an error because variable is not defined. That's what it's saying here. Okay, Python prints a message that includes the name of an exception, the line of the program where the problem occurred, and a traceback. See here, it includes an error message, it includes line where the error occurred, and it gives the error. Okay, that's what it's saying here. it prints the message, includes the name of the exception, the line of the program where the problem occurred, and it traces back. So that's exactly. It traces back, file, line, where it occurred, and the actual line, the error name, and what is it which is causing the error. Type error occurs when programmer uses a value improperly. Example, using non-numeric values for indexing or passing wrong number of arguments to a function. Basically, if you want to divide a string by a number, it will give you an error as well. And then it gives you a type error because you are trying to divide string by a number, which is not possible. So basically, if you were to use an IDE to debug this, you see this? It just says unsupported operand for type S for string and integer. Okay, it's more clear here. Okay, if you were to be using IDE, it's pretty easy. Just click on here and it will take you as to where the error is happening. Now there is key error as well, right? I'll walk you through the various different types of error, and I will keep on moving. These are simple stuff, guys. So key error occurs when a programmer is accessing an elements of a dictionary using a non-existent key. Basically, you know, in dictionary it's a key value pair, right? So that's the same thing. It's like a key is an index here, and you have a value. So if you're trying to access some other key which is not already available, it gives a key error. It's as simple as that. And you get an attribute error when you are trying to access an attribute or method that does not exist. So let's say, for example, you have defined a class here, okay, and then you are instantiating the class. Now you call an attribute which is not there in the class, so you get an attribute error. Okay, isn't it very simple, guys? Index error, the index being used to access. So you have seen this many a times, right? You define a list and then you try to read from list, which does not exist. So it gives an index error. Okay, let me tell you. See, you're trying to now. If you are, what are you trying to do here? Let's print this. Okay. Just this word of this one will give me some string. This will also give me some other string. Okay, I'll have to type it. Okay. Now, can I divide a string by a string? What is unsupported operand type for string divided by string? So that's what it's giving me, right? So you know it, right? That's what it is. You just cannot divide a string by string. And I'll read through this some of these slides. I'll go till I don't know, maybe another 10 more slides, and then I'll come back and tell you some of the important concepts about date, time, and even octal numbers. Okay. So semantic errors are very hard to debug as the interpreter provides no information about what's going wrong. Mostly occurs because of flawed logic. Like I told you, right? I mean, if you wanted to print A and then you printed B, that's not a problem with machine, or that's not a problem with Python. You did not write the logic properly. So deal with errors with the below tips. So require well-placed print statement or set debugger and put traces at right places and execute step by step. So this is the only way you'll be able to debug a semantic error. Put print in each line or do a debugging of line by line. That's how you'll be able to identify as to from where it's wrong. So you'll have to test each method or module separately before putting them together. If you have 10 modules, 20 modules, just test them separately, more like a unit testing, and and then do an integration of those. Simplify and break complex expressions. Okay, so if you have complex expression written in one line, just break it into multiple lines and make it as simple as it looks. Okay, so here you see this is a simple function. Okay, now if you let me do this. This is very interesting. Let me define a function with def and then some testing. Okay, and then colon, and then I say return, and after return I say print now. What will be the output of this program, guys? Any idea? What should be the output of this program? Let me run this. Okay, there is no output. But then when I did write this print, I was expecting it to print hello world, right? So basically, if you put anything after return, that's not going to be printed, because as soon as it reaches return, the control is going back to wherever it was calling. So there is nothing here to be printed. Now, if I were to do this, so this with print state execute. No, it will not. It will not. I'm going to show you as to why. Because as soon as it reaches return, it's going back. It's going back to wherever it was calling. So if I say now because I have written after my print statement, it just goes and executes it. Okay, so that is a semantic error, right? Because you did not know where to put the correct thing. It's not, Python does not understand what you wanted. Python understands the way you have written the code. It will go sequentially and execute the code, right? So that's about your semantic error. Okay, let me see. Okay, now output of this, guys. It's simple, right? You have A as 5, B as 1, and then you say 5.5, but that will be, so but if I were to be in my it just gives me 5, but if you were to be in your Python 3.x and onwards, right, 3.x, it will give you 5.5, but prior to that 2.7 will give you only 5. You know why? But that's not the whole point, because until and unless you cast it or you do it something like this, you are not going to get 5.5. Okay, that's one thing. But the expectation would have been to get 5.5, right? I mean, you would have expected 5.5. You are getting 5, and you are thinking there is something wrong with Python. So that's not how it works, because you have to understand its limitations as well. Python 2.7, until unless you explicitly cast a number into float, it's not going to give you a float output. It's just going to give you integer only. You will just move forward. But the idea was not to do 5 plus 1 divided by 2. The idea was this. The idea was this. Okay. But then I got some 5.5 for 5, which I did not want. So that is what is being said here. It's saying that's flawed logic. And moving on to debugging using Pycharm. You see here in Pycharm, right, there is something called debug, or just right click and then say debug. Okay, once you have started that, you can just put whatever here and then just do a F8. You see, that's it. You keep on doing F8, right? You say right click, debug, and then you say F8. From wherever you have given the breakpoints, it will go there and then it will continue to go to your breakpoints and then get out. Okay, so there are other options as well. Let's see as to what is that. Click run debug commands. You can go to either run and debug commands. You can do from here as well, right? Debug test1. You can do it from there, or you can just right click on it and then say debug. And also you can put a breakpoints, like I have shown you as to how to give a temporary breakpoints, wherein your control will come whenever you type F8. And please breakpoints by simply pressing left click. Yeah, that I have already shown that to you. And also there are other multiple options. Okay, if you want to see here, you see debug, Alt Shift F9 will directly do debug for you. Run will be Alt Shift F10. Step over, step into, right? If you use F8, it's step over. If you do F7, it will be step into. See here, it will go more sequentially. So there are various options, and these are options which is related to Pycharm. So basically, whenever you are writing your code, try to use this debug and step over, step in, step out, etc. And you'll understand as to why this is there. Basically, it's like any other programming language. You're tracing line by line. If you want to trace line by line, which is good, you can use F7. But if you want to just go directly to some particular line and start tracing from there, you can do that as well. You know, there are many options which are available here, if you can see right now. Okay. So, and also there is something called as the Python debugger. Okay, let's see as to what that is. If you are not a big fan of Pycharm, then I suggest you use Python debugger. Okay, let me type in a small piece of code for you. And PDB comes default with your Python distribution. Python debugger, import Python debugger, and let me create a function sum and two parameters. I take two parameters, A and B. Okay, and I would say have PDB dot tr set trace. Okay, and as soon as I'm done, I would say C equal to A to the power of 2 plus B to the power of 2. Okay, and I'll just give some text. Edureka, some more text. Teachers, some more text. Python final plus E plus F. Okay, that's my final, and let me print that final as well, and let me return C. Okay, and oops, some of us takes exactly 2 arguments. Okay, no problem. I will give 2 arguments, 3, 4. Now you see, so the first time it called sum of squares, it went from here to here, it found out the pdb.trace Python debugger, and then it stopped in the first line itself. Now we'll go and see as to what that is. Okay. Now let's read as to what this is. PDB is an interactive source debugger for Python programs. It's similar to your debugging in Pycharm. Useful when executing Python code from idle or command line. Yeah, this is very useful when you are using this from your command lines, because if you are using Pycharm, you do not need this. Add import PDB and pdb.setRest to your codes at points where you want to debug. That is what I have done. Okay, guys, if you do not understand, please let me know. In the debugger, step into code and you can execute arbitrary number of statements with prefixing a exclamation. PDB lets you debug items interactively and steps into functions to follow what our code is doing. I'm going to show you that. You can add PDB trace statements in the program and invoke it from command line or interactively through idle. Okay, now we'll see. If I do an H here, once I have right clicked on it and then executed, it's giving me this PDB debugger. Okay, if I say H, it gives me all the help. Okay, if I say N, next line, it gives me next line. It gives me, and then you see this arrow, it says the control is in D equal to Edureka, because the first time after setting my trace, my control was here. You see here, for the first time it was here. When I say next, N, it's here. Again I say N, it says Python teaches E. Again I say N, it goes to Python, right? And what else? If I enter, it gives me my last command. You see here, it gives me my last command if I put an enter. If I want to print the variables, I say P, but there are no variables right now, so it does not print anything. Okay, and if I say C, it will just turn off your PDB prompt. I, seeing where you are. If I say I, it's not I, L, sorry. If I say L, it will tell you as to where you are. You see here? If you see here, if you say I, it shows you are in this position because you just pressed an enter. Okay, and this W prints a stack trace, D moves the current frame one level down in the stack trace, U move the current frame one level up in the stack trace, right? So on and so forth. So there are various options. Okay. So basically there are various options available with PDB which you can utilize when you are writing your program from command line or idle. Okay. Please note, you will use PDB only when you are using a command line or and idle. If you are using Pycharm or any integrated development environment, you are not going to use this. I am not a big fan of PDB either because I use Pycharm most of my times. So in case you need PDB, you still can go ahead and import it and use it, or you can use Pycharm and be happy and thankful that they developed such a wonderful IDE. If you want to read more about PDB, go to docs.python.org and you can read it from there. Okay.